Hi there folks and quiz fans, welcome to Joy's Lockdown Quiz Week 5. During the various iterations of lockdown, Joy's done pretty much 40 quizzes I think by now. All of those have been done by sending out emails and stuff. We thought it might be quite a nice idea to try one out online. We've been doing Jay's virtual pub quiz and they're good fun, so we thought it might be good to try a version of that ourselves, see how we get on, get some feedback. There will be 30 questions. There are no rounds, so it's 30 individual questions and no subject order at all. So they're completely random, any subject that comes up. So you need a piece of paper. You'll be able to write down 30 answers, hopefully. And at the end we'll go through and we'll mark them. We'll see how many you got right, and I'll let you or whoever's marking your answers decide whether the answer you put down is in fact correct. All that we'd ask is once you've finished and you've added it up and you've seen how many you've got, can you post your score down on the comments for the video? That'd be great. That just gives us an idea how people are going on, and if we're making them too hard then we'll ease up a bit, and similarly if everyone's getting full marks we might add a few more difficult questions. We'll see. So without further ado, we'll leap into the quiz and see how we go. Good luck folks. Okay, here's the first question. Which 1982 film was greatly accepted by film fans for its portrayal of the love between a young fatherless suburban boy and a lost, benevolent and homesick visitor from another planet? Okay. Another planet sounds a bit sci-fi, doesn't it? Hopefully that's not too hard to get you started. Okay, should we move on? Question 2. How many players are there on an Olympic curling team? I'll give you a clue. It's somewhere between 1 and 50. How many players are there on an Olympic curling team? Moving on, question 3. To the nearest 1,000, how many hairs are there on a typical human head? How many hairs are there on a typical human head? I don't know how many typical human heads we've got out there, but I guess you can start counting. But I'm going to move on in about 10 seconds, so you need to count quick. Moving on, which goalkeeper holds the record for winning the most caps for England? 125 caps in his playing career. Which goalkeeper holds the record for the most caps for England with 125 caps? Not sure on this one. There's 3 or 4 I can think of, but I'm sure you football fans out there will know. And there we go. Question 5. Which artist created Campbell's soup cans in 1962? Which artist created Campbell's soup cans in 1962? Okay. Bit tricky, I think. In which country would you find the landmark Angkor Wat? In which country would you find the landmark Angkor Wat? Question 7. What is the only female deer to typically grow antlers? The only female deer to typically grow antlers. I don't want a name, I want a species. So what species of deer grows antlers? Question 8. What was the first Bond film hitting the screens in 1962 with Sean Connery playing 007? So what was that first film with Sean Connery as 007? Which game, first released in 1967, so very much for our older viewers, consists of a plastic tube, a number of plastic rods called straws, and a number of marbles? Which game, first released in 1967, consists of a plastic tube, a number of plastic rods called straws, and a number of marbles? Okay, on we go. Question 10. The phrase "all sport" appears 45 times in which novel, of which there are several film versions? The phrase "all sport" appears 45 times in which novel, of which there are several film versions? Okay then, moving on with question 11. What links a Moira Shearer film, Noel Streatfeild books, and a Jimmy Nail drama? One specific thing, or maybe it's two specific things actually, links a Moira Shearer film, Noel Streatfeild books, and a Jimmy Nail drama. Okay. Question 12. Leather jackets are the larvae of which insect? Right, I should know this one because they've dug up our lawn this summer, made a real mess of it. So what are the leather jackets the larvae of? Okay. Which UK national park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site? Which UK national park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site? Question 14. Who are Bobby, Peter and Phyllis? Who are Bobby, Peter and Phyllis? Okay. Question 15. Which restaurant chain began in 1987 in Johannesburg in South Africa? Which restaurant chain began in 1987 in Johannesburg in South Africa? HM Naval Base Clyde is better known as what? HM Naval Base Clyde is better known as what? Question 17. Which wild birds never meet their parents? Which wild birds never meet their parents? And by wild, we mean wild, not kind of factory processed birds or anything like that. So it's a wild bird that never meets its parents. Je t'aime non plus, sorry, Je t'aime moi non plus was originally written for whom? Je t'aime moi non plus was originally written for whom? Most people know the Jane Birkin, Serge Gainsbourg version, but who was it originally written for? Question 19. Who was the Queen's Uncle David? Who was the Queen's Uncle David? Okay. Lots of words in the King James Bible. What is the last of them? What is the last word in the King James Bible? We had quite a warm summer this year, but it wasn't this hot. Where was a temperature of 54.4 degrees Celsius recorded in August? Where was a temperature of 54.4 degrees recorded in August? Okay. Question 22. Which marsupial is the world's largest burrowing animal? Which marsupial is the world's largest burrowing animal? What is the only country crossed by both the equator and a tropic? What is the only country crossed by the equator and also a tropic? Okay, question 24. Steiff made black mourning teddies after what event that occurred in the early 20th century? Steiff made black mourning teddies after what event in the early 20th century? Which opera composer had lovely moments but awful quarters of an hour, according to a fellow composer? Composer's not named, I notice. But which opera composer had lovely moments but awful quarters of an hour? René Richards, question 26. René Richards has uniquely done what in tennis? Rennie Richards has uniquely done what in tennis? Okay. Question 27. Which family ruled Austria for 600 years? Which family ruled Austria for 600 years? Question 28. Last three questions now. What term for favoritism comes from the Latin for nephew? What term for favoritism comes from the Latin for nephew? Okay. Question 29, last but one. Marmalade usually comes from orange or lime now, but what was it originally made from? Which fruit was marmalade originally made from? And the last question. Edinburgh teacher Christina Kay inspired which character? Edinburgh teacher Christina Kay inspired which character? Okay, that completes all of the questions, the 30 questions. I hope you've got an answer for all of them. Just give you a few seconds now to gather everything, fill up any blanks that you've got. Probably not time to go make a cup of tea unless you put this video on pause. Okay, you can take as long as you like. And then we'll get on with the answers in just a few seconds. Okay, if you're going to swap your papers, I suggest you do that now. Otherwise, if you know that you're totally honest and are going to mark completely honestly, then no need to do that, obviously. Okay, here are the answers. Okay, question 1. The film that was greatly accepted by film fans for the portrayal of a love by a young fatherless suburban boy and a lost benevolent homesick visitor from another planet, of course, E.T. E.T. Phone Home. E.T. Steven Spielberg. There are 4 players in an Olympic curling team. Okay. About 10,000 hairs on the average or typical human head. I don't know if anybody managed to count them, but about 10,000. So to the nearest thousand, anything between 9,000 and 11,000 is okay. That goalkeeper with 125 caps was in fact Peter Shilton. Okay, so if you put Gordon Banks or Ray Clements, nice try, but the answer is Peter Shilton. Campbell's soup cans, very famously painted by Andy Warhol. Okay. Question 6. Angkor Wat is in Cambodia. Cambodia. Reindeer grow antlers. Female deer, reindeer grow antlers. So becoming seasonal. The first Bond film was in fact Dr. No. Okay. That's the one with Ursula Andress coming out of the sea with a conch shell. Funny how I remember that. Dr. No. The game with the plastic tubes and the plastic rods and the marbles is Kaplunk. Kaplunk. Okay, all you Kaplunk players out there. Question 10. The phrase old sport appears 45 times in The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. Thing that links Moira Shearer, Noel Streatfeild and Jimmy Nail is in fact shoes. The red shoes for Moira Shearer, ballet shoes for the Streatfeild books, and crocodile shoes for Jimmy Nail. Shoes is the answer. Leather jackets. Birds dug up my lawn trying to get these things. Crane flies or daddy longlegs will do. Crane flies. The UK National Park, which is in the which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is the Lake District. Okay, the Lake District. Bobby, Peter and Phyllis are in fact the railway children. Bobby, Peter and Phyllis are the railway children. The restaurant chain which began in Johannesburg in 1987 is Nando's. Funny, I always thought it was Portuguese, but apparently it started in South Africa in 1987. Nando's. HM Naval Base at Clyde is known as Faslane. Faslane Naval Base. Okay. Wild birds that never meet their parents? Cuckoos. Cuckoos. Parents abandon them apparently. Very sad. Je t'aime moi non plus, originally written for Brigitte Bardot. Brigitte Bardot. Queen's Uncle David, in fact, Edward VIII. He's the one that married Mrs. Simpson and abdicated. I think the other way around actually, but Edward VIII. Last word in the King James Bible, Amen. Amen. Temperature 54.4 degrees centigrade. Where else? Death Valley. Probably Furnace Creek. It's very hot there. The marsupial, which is the world's largest burrowing animal, is the wombat. Wombat. The only country which is crossed by both the equator and one of the tropics is Brazil. Brazil. Steiff made a black morning tellies after the sinking of the Titanic. That was 1912 that happened. Okay, sinking of the Titanic is the answer. The opera composer who had lovely moments but awful quarters of an hour He can sometimes go on a little bit. Richard Wagner. Rennie Richards, of course, was famous for having a sex change and actually competed in both the men's and the women's Grand Slam events. So he's the only person ever to have done that, competed in both men's and women's events. The family which ruled Austria for 600 years was the Habsburg family. The Habsburg family. And the term for favoritism, coming from the Latin for nephew, is nepotism. Nepotism. It kind of works, doesn't it? First three letters are the same. Marmalade was originally made from quince. You don't often get quince marmalade now. In fact, I've never heard of it, but that's apparently where it originated. And the final question, Christina Kay inspired Miss Jean Brodie. Edinburgh teacher Christine Kay inspired Miss Jean Brodie. Okay, so that now is the end of the quiz. If you'd like to tot up your answers, as I said before, I'd be really grateful if you could slot your name and whoever answered and your score down in the comments column. That would be brilliant, and let us know what you think. If you'd like just to get it in future as a blank sheet of questions, that's fine, we can do that, or we can do it in this format as well. Let us know what you think. Okay, over and